All right, joined today again, I've told Director Chappelle anytime that he has any good news or a call to action or information for the community, he's always more than welcome here on the Morning Update Show, and we welcome back. He's the DEEL, the Director of DEEL, Director Chappelle. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here on the show.
All right, and we're also joined by Erica Lanier, and who is the director of the Seed of Life Early Learning Center, a few locations in South Seattle. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. And for people that don't know, we've always got a new audience that's coming in. Director Chappelle, maybe you can tell people real quick before we get started what DEAL stands for. There's always these acronyms, and what you do there.
Absolutely. So, DEEL I'm Dwane Chappelle, and DEEL stands for the Department of Education and Early Learning. And what we do, we oversee the family's education, preschool, and promise levy that has a huge incorporation of the Seattle preschool program and other child care that we'll get to talk about in a few minutes. I also would like to share, as always, that I am the former principal of the Rainier Beach High School here in South Seattle.
And I got to bring him back. You see this guy, he's always trying to throw in that Rainier Beach out there. Yeah, I told you all the time, it's a Garfield network. If it wasn't for the fact that you educating our kids, man, I don't know how much airtime you be getting around here. That being said, Director, maybe you can tell us about some of the options the city currently has for families and young children, and what in-person opportunities it might have in regards to childcare.
Yes. Again, as I always say, thank you for having me on here. And I would be remiss if I didn't actually congratulate you on the mentioned amazing article that was in the Seattle Times, Local Hero #4. So I wanted to give you a shout out, and the work that you're doing for our community, man, is priceless. So we'll start with that. But well, as you know, it's a hard time for many families right now. And if you work in person, or if you need to keep yourself safe and make decisions about how to help your child learn and stay safe themselves, or if you have the privilege to work from home like I do, then you need to balance your school-age children's remote learning, using all the Wi-Fi in your house while you're actually trying to do your own job. So the Department of Education and Early Learning, as you just mentioned, DEEL, we currently have two fantastic programs for families with young children, such as myself, and I'm excited to tell you more about them today. The Seattle Preschool program, it serves children ages 3 and 4 years old with high quality, affordable preschool that boosts their kindergarten readiness, because we want to make sure that they're ready when they step into kindergarten. And then the second one is the Child Care Assistance Program that serves children's ages 1 month to 12 years old. And CCAP is what we call it. CCAP, it helps families cover the cost of childcare, and you can choose from over 200 childcare providers across the city. And we recently announced that we'll be covering 50% of family copay for the cost from January through March 2021. And that's providing additional assistance that we know many families need at this time. And a specific data fact is that African Americans are the largest group represented in both of these programs. We have 32% of our Seattle preschool program participants are Black or African American, and then we have 46% of children being served in the CCAP that are Black or African American.
Right, and so if I get this right, then what you're saying is that the city is offering financial assistance in relationship with a child care provider, and you're paying up to 50% of the cost for child care.
Yep, we'll be covering 50% of the family's copay costs from January through March of 2021.
Man, that's big news.
Yes, it is. It's amazing, and it's great for us to be able to support our families and communities right now, especially during this pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, we know our families need it, and we know our kids need to be safe, and we want them to thrive. So anything that we can do that we can help support our families, we're always going to put our ears to it and our minds around it.
Right, and maybe you could tell us a little bit more, and I guess Erica could probably chime in on this as well. Is like, what does this look like this year? What does preschool look like? And this is a very unique situation that we're here, not only here in Seattle but across the country. What does preschool look like?
Well, for us, we have three centers, and one center is strictly virtual learning, and that's the Seat of Life location out of Rainier Beach Community Center. And then the other two locations are in person, and it's just like a normal day, but with COVID procedures.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I could imagine that a lot of parents definitely need child care, but then they might also be balancing the fact of like, man, they're already probably in an essential working position, and so they're already
Right.
high risk, and they might be, nervous about engaging or taking advantage of this program, wondering about COVID and COVID safety. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the COVID precautions that you take there at Seat of Life.
So we do we do what's called curbside now. So what that means is the parents pull up and they can't come in. We go out to the car. We take the child's temperature in the car. They fill out a log, sign out the log. It asks some questions, and which are COVID related questions, and then they sign off for the day. We take the child's temperature and bring them inside. So curbside reduces, especially for example, for one site for 60 children, that reduces at least 120 people contact on a daily basis into the center. And then we all wear scrubs instead of our outside clothes while we're in the center. And at the end of the day, we disinfect those scrubs. So we do the cleaning in house so that we know that they meet all the requirements to be cleaned appropriately. And then in the classrooms, just trying to do the 6 feet social distancing, but of course these are kids. The older kids, for example, like our Martin Luther King location where we also have school age children, it's a bit easier to do. But for the younger children, 3 to 5 year olds, um, it's hard for them not to give their friend hugs and stuff like that. So we just remind them. We make sure that the children wear masks throughout the whole day. We provide the mask for the children, and just teaching about personal space and during COVID what that looks like. Because we've been open during the whole pandemic, for our children, they're familiar with the pandemic now and the protocol and the routines. We do a lot of sanitizing, a lot of cleaning, pretty similar to what we were doing before, but now some of the wipes we use are more intense than we would have used before. And we've gotten some of our PPE supplies supported through the city of Seattle. They've provided some of those supplies for us. Let's see what else. That's the main thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Director.
Well, no, I was going to
That's
say, go ahead, Erica.
that's pretty much the main thing. The children were already in their separate cohorts, their same teachers for throughout the whole day. They already ate in their classroom, so for us that wasn't a big change. At the Martin Luther King location, because of the group size, there's a reduction in classroom size. It was impacted more so at that location. So the staff to child ratio was even lower than what we currently had. And we don't mix the groups for when they go outside time. So their outside time, they're still with their same cohort. So for us, that's still the same. Whereas other programs, they might have had to do a rotating schedule for outside time. But for us, that's been about the same. What's been impactful for us is that we can't go on field trips anymore. And that has been hard. So like going to the park or getting on public transportation and to go to the zoo or the aquarium or Pacific Science Center, things like that, we can't do right now. So that's been a change. You're just pretty much, because of the health and safety of everywhere else, like we're in our own bubble, but if we go outside of that bubble, then we become more of an increased risk. So we just have to maintain and stay on site on location.
You
And a
know,
couple.
it sounds. I'm sorry. I give it to you right here, Director Chappelle. I was just going to throw out that it sounds like this is clearly well thought through protocols that are there at the seat of life. And is this consistent? You find this consistent? Does DEEL like have a certain standards with all the different operators that you're working with across the city?
They do now.
Well, I
Um,
was saying for
yeah.
Director Chappelle.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah,
Oh.
yes, we do. Consistency is key, and we try to make sure, and we do find it to make sure that we're all following the public health protocols that Director Erica just mentioned. A couple of other things I really wanted to make sure that we elaborated on. Erica mentioned it. Is that our Seattle preschool program is being offered this year in 3 different formats. So we have an in-person format, we have a remote and family directed learning format, and then we have a hybrid format. And all of our programs are operating under the current public health guidelines that you just mentioned. And many of our families qualify to participate free of charge, and higher income families do pay on a sliding scale. And we've reduced tuition for preschool in response to COVID this year as well. The second thing I wanted to mention is that our Seattle preschool program is nationally recognized for high quality, accessible programming. Excuse me. We recently was awarded as our 4th silver medal from the City Health and the National Institute from Early Education Research. That's out of Rutgers University. And they look at programming in all the 40 top cities, the top 40 largest cities in the US. And all of our Seattle preschool programs offer high quality, culturally responsive curriculum that's focused on preparing our young learners for kindergarten. I mentioned this earlier. And again, the data is showing that Black children that are enrolled in Seattle preschool program are kindergarten ready at higher rates than the Seattle public schools average. We have 60% of our Seattle preschool program are versus the 50% of the SPS average. So we and I don't know if Erica wanted to speak and discuss the specific skills that our young scholars are developing, or the activities that help keep them, if you feel free to.
So some of the skill sets in order to be kindergarten ready that we have our children maintain, of course, is their self-identification, knowing who they are, knowing how to spell their name, but also being culturally responsive. We encourage children that can speak different languages. We speak a multitude of languages, our staff do. And as a center, we teach the children English and Spanish all the way throughout, and then we infuse it with Vietnamese starting in the preschool classroom, which for us is a 3 to 4 year old. So then we infuse it with Vietnamese until they go to kindergarten. We work with Seattle Public Schools for transition. We do assessments. We're still doing assessments and parent teacher conferences. This year, because of the pandemic, it's via Zoom. And then we are making sure that the children have all their social emotional skills, how to be able to interact, how to be able to problem solve. For our older group, because of the pandemic, we've really been working on how to really hone in on the computer stuff, so that they're adequately prepared to transition into this. Because the pandemic started in March, we had a group that, instead of going to a brick and mortar school in the fall, in September of last year, they went into online. And so preparing a preschooler going into kindergarten, how to do online learning, instead of what they were used to in person with teachers and stuff like that. So dealing with that transition, and also working with parents and being a support system for them, providing resources for them, giving them information. Not only is it this pandemic affecting the education, it's also affecting families for resources for food, for utilities, as Dwane was saying, for childcare assistance, especially because people are losing jobs or being laid off. The household income has changed. food resources. And so being that program where you can filter that information to families. In addition, we're part of Seattle Tilt and Farm to the Table, and the city of Seattle has been helping fund that also, where we provide bags of groceries to families. And we're like in the curriculum, we do a lot of hands-on learning. So we're also talking about food, cooking food. Normally we would go visit, collect food for the shelter, Rainier Valley Shelter, food bank, but because of COVID, we can't go down there and deliver the food. Where the kids would kind of do a tour and see what a food bank is used for. Some children understand, some children don't. So there's a lot of things that are embedded with us, especially in the curriculum and the field trips that kind of tie together because the children learn through their five senses. So,
Right.
So we do a lot of hands-on learning, and like I said, English and Spanish, just making sure that they're ready for school. And right now, ready for school looks differently than it did a couple of years ago.
Right. And now, Director Chappelle, Erica is brought up a few different things there. One, of course, the skill sets was the original question, what she hit on, but it also sounds like, at least they're a Seed of Life, man. They're doing a lot of other wraparound services, well beyond. Are these wraparound services something that DEEL is encouraging from your partners, your child care provider partners in your program?
It is something that we're encouraging to make sure that our partners are providing those wraparound support services for families, because we know at the end of the day, what's best for the kid, you have to incorporate all of the culturally components that Erica just mentioned. We know that, I'm just speaking from educators' perspective. As an educator, we know that students learn best when they know that their teacher in their classroom cares about them. We know that you have to take in what's happening within that home, within the community, into their environment in order to make sure that there's optimal learning happening. And at the end of the day, our teachers are leaders in the classroom. So it is providing support for our children from the whole child, the whole day is something that's key. And that is a research-based determined fact of how we're going to make sure our young people, especially our Black and brown children, are going to be successfully navigating when they go to the school system. So yes, it is.
Right, and this sounds like great services that are being provided for children and families that are already enrolled. But my question for you is enrollment still available, or are people still able to apply?
Absolutely, yes. So we're accepting applications for new enrollees in the Seattle Preschool program this year, all the way through March 14th. If you have a 3 or a 4-year-old at home, we'd really love to hear from you. You can choose to keep your child at home or have access to remote learning, as I mentioned earlier, for your family. But to help to get them ready for kindergarten, you have those options. Or if you're comfortable, we just talked about the public health guidelines, and if you're comfortable within your family, we do have preschool providers that are able to serve your child in person. Enrollment for 2021-22 school year will begin in March, and we're hopeful that our kids and families will be able to return to school in person in September. And I'll actually pause right there.
All right. Well, now, if I could just follow up on this as well, I know some of these wraparound services, Erica hit on a lot of them. Are there any other additional child care assistance or services that are available this winter that you want the public to know about?
Yeah, so yes, there is other assistance that I would love for the public to know about. So the Child Care Assistance Program is offering, families help with child care costs year round. We're offering additional 50% off of family co-pays January through March this year. Our Child Care Assistance Program is available to families and parents who are working or attending a school or a job training program. Families are eligible based on their household income or in family size. So for an example, a family of 4 making less than $90,000 a year is eligible for assistance. We have 80% of our CCAP participants are families of color. African American are the largest group serving, as I mentioned earlier, making up about 46% of CCAP participation. And the city, you know, it pays a portion of the family's child care cost at any one of over our 200 providers. And the remaining amount, the family pays directly to their provider. And I didn't know, you know, Erica, not to put you on the spot, but is there anything that you would like to mention that's, you know, because you serve both CCAP and SPP families as
So,
well.
so to also clarify, for the CCAP, that's for families who have children that are an infant all the way up through school-age children. So it covers that whole group, basically from 1 month to 12 years of age. So the SPP, the Seattle Preschool component for funding is for the 3 to 4 year olds. So the city covers all the age groups. It's just what pot of money it's coming from to help the family. So if the provider's rate, for example, is hypothetically $1,200 and the city is going to give you a voucher for $800, the family would pay $400. But with this current setup that the city has, then they'll pay the additional $200 and the parent only pays the $200 instead of the $400, if that makes sense. And this is for all age groups. For SPP, though, it's even broken down even more. Sometimes it's free, and that the parents don't have to pay anything. So it's really a good program. And us providers, we do have openings right now because of pandemic, and a lot of families are keeping their children at home. But at the same time, if they keep their children at home, there still is that virtual option, which they can take a part of and get funding for. And for our families who do that virtual option, we provide a Kindle. We downloaded all the apps where they get their curriculum. We use Seesaw, which is the same curriculum app that Seattle Public Schools uses. And then we also do Scholastic. And they have a teacher that they interact with, but it's all virtual. And so a lot of programs are doing something similar, if not their own version. We provide all the materials that the children need and communicate with the families electronically. So a lot of programs are doing something similar, but for us, like I said, we provide the Kindles that go out to the children so that they have the modality and something to communicate with for each program.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Director.
No, I was just going to say, you know that as Erica just mentioned, and we're doing some great work, and all of our Seattle preschool program providers are all doing phenomenal work. Just really wanted to also highlight, you know, I'm sitting here thinking and I'm looking and listening to Erica speak. You know, Erica, Seed of Life has just graduated two or maybe 3 of my family members. And so this is just an example of how impactful it is within the community, that and how small our community is. I'm just realizing that. So I just want to thank you, Erica, and your leadership that you guys have been doing over there.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and let's start with you first, Erica, and then we'll go over to Director Chappelle because he can tell people from in a citywide. But how can people get up with Seed of Life? People watch this video right here, and they're interested in your center. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Right now, the best way would be to call us, because normally we have a waiting list, but with the pandemic, everybody's trying to wait. So if they call us directly at our main number, which is 206-726-6001, that's the best way to communicate. Email is also fine, and on our website, seedoflifeinc.com, where it says contact us, they can email us information, but the phone call is the best way. We'll get them the information, we'll help them through the process, because there are required documents that the city needs. We will submit it for the families. We can scan it, send it in a PDF electronically, so the families don't have to find a modality to be able to do that. and usually the process takes a couple weeks, and then the child's able to start. So depending on if they pick in person or if they want strictly virtual, we could do either or. We do have a spot at our main site in Columbia City. We have 2 openings there, and then our site at Martin Luther King Junior Elementary School, even though Seattle Public Schools is closed, we have our own classrooms in that school, dedicated space for us, and so we're pretty much in the whole school by ourselves. And that one is school age and before and after school, and we do have some openings. We have about 9 openings at that location for in person. And then the Rainier Beach location, which is normally at Rainier Beach Community Center, but right now we're virtual. We do have some virtual openings too, and so we can accept, I believe, 8 virtual left. So either location, either modality that people want to do, if they call us at 206-726-6001, and even if they need guided into going to another location, we can help refer them to. And then the city of Seattle, if they just type in SPP, they'll get the SPP location, and they can apply online or on their phone. But sometimes for families, the hard part comes in submitting paycheck stubs, proof of address verification, or like birth certificates. And so again, for us, that's where we scan and send all that information to the city in lieu of the parents.
Right. And Director Chappelle, she kind of alluded, Erica kind of alluded to it there, one way that people can get information, but you can tell our audience if they wanted to go, because I know if I understand it correctly, one way to start is either with the provider, but another way to start the process is actually going into the city website. So why don't you tell everybody how, if they want to, access your office and get an understanding of the program and start the application there.
Yes, absolutely. So we have over 200 independent child care programs throughout the city who accept CCAP vouchers for our Seattle families. So parents can choose from both home-based family child care or large center care. Our team can provide families with a list of participating providers and help families search for sites in their neighborhood on their commute to work. If parents already have a provider in mind, they can reach out and ask that provider if they take CCAP vouchers. All of our CCAP providers are operating under, as we mentioned earlier, our COVID-19 guidelines, but our partner at Parks and Rec, they also have childcare options available to families and are offering the same copay relief to scholarship families. So families who have a Parks childcare location near them can contact the Seattle Parks for more information. But for us, you can reach out to seattle.gov/apply-SPP. You can do the same for seattle.gov/CCAP, that's CCAP. Or you can call our early learning team at 206-386-1050. And I'll say it one more time. I know I'm speaking kind of fast. It's 206-386-1050. Or you can go online at seattle.gov/apply-SPP. And the last one is seattle.gov/CCAP.
All right, Director, but before we let you and Erica go, Director Chappelle, is there anything else that you want our viewers to know about these programs right here that maybe we didn't cover in this interview?
I think we covered it all, but I want viewers to know that if you feel safe, if you feel safe, there's an opportunity for you to bring your children to an in-person child care facility. If you want to have resources supported to teach your child at home, we have hybrid or family hybrid approaches. And if you want a hybrid amount where you want to do some home learning and you want your child to come in just for them to get reacclimated to being in person, we have that option for you as well. And I encourage you, please reach out to us. We are here. We are a resource. And at the end of the day, we have to make sure that our young scholars are going to be ready and academically prepared for when they enter kindergarten and going back to school post this pandemic. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here for you, and our goal is to serve you. Thank you, families.
Yeah, well, I know this much, Director Chappelle is. I mean, we monitor a lot of city programs, and the thing is about you and about what you're doing there at Deal. It's the real deal, and these are big investments, especially if you compare what Seattle's doing here to some other cities in America.
Hmm.
A lot of what we're doing here is very innovative. But I just want to congratulate your office and congratulate your partner providers and everything else because you're continuously delivering good results, not just for our community, but for the city as a whole. And I just want to acknowledge the fact, congratulations on the latest award that you guys picked up. And you have to continue to come back here. And I tell you, it's an open door for you to share this good news or a call to action or however we can get information out to the community. So I want to thank both yourself and Erica for taking time today.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, and keep up the great work that you're doing. And just know that this work that we do at Deal, it's not about me or our team. It's about making sure that our families have the necessary support that they need. Because at the end of the day, it's all about it's not about us. It's about the kids. So thank you. Appreciate you, Erica. Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. And thank you for allowing us to talk too.